adding Wikidata tags. So this is a tool anyone can use. It's running now. The URL is there. So I'm going to use Stockholm Central as my example throughout these slides. So I've put some data about Stockholm Central there. It's a railway station, it's got coordinates, it's got a station code, and you can find it in Wikidata and in OpenStreetMap. So here's the Wikidata page about the station. And I guess everyone here is pretty familiar with Wikidata, but just to recap, Wikidata pages have labels, descriptions, aliases, site links, and statements. So different kinds of data, and they've all got a item ID. So that's the Q number there. That's the unique identifier for a Wikidata item. And so then here's the same thing in OpenStreetMap. This is a node, so like a point in OpenStreetMap. There's other types of data object in OpenStreetMap, which are ways and relations. Like the complexity works up. So ways are collections of nodes, and then relations are like groups that can have nodes and ways in. And this is just represented as a node for the station, and it's got a number, like kind of a unique identifier, and then you've got the list of tags down there, which is a bit like statements in Wikidata, but they're not as structured. They're just kind of plain text. You can put any tags in you want. There is a wiki where people try and agree on what the tags should be. They are kind of free form. So the challenge is to figure out which of these two things match up. Like, you know, we want to be able to, well, next slide. So, you know, why do I want to do this? Why do I want to have a link between the objects in the different systems? And it's for various reasons, but you know, in Wikidata we tend to just have coordinates. There is a little bit of support for shapes of things. But in general, OpenStreetMap has much more detailed geometry, whereas Wikidata tends to have labels in more languages, and it's got more identifiers, so links into different systems and so on. Like there are some identifiers in OpenStreetMap, but Wikidata tends to have more. And open link data, because it's very fashionable, you know, semantic web. Everyone wants open link data, so this is an example of that. So if I go back to my example, this is Stockholm run through my software, and it finds over 1,000 matches. So this is quite a big area to work with. So you know, if I try and submit all of these to OpenStreetMap, it'll be a very big set of changes, and the OpenStreetMap people might get upset that I've edited so many things at once. So instead, I'm going to work with a smaller area. So this is just a city district within Stockholm. So the first step is I need to log into OpenStreetMap to be able to edit it. So if the login is via OpenStreetMap OAuth. So click this link, and you end up going over to the OpenStreetMap website, put in your login details. You come back to the page. So you can see within this city district, it's found 160 candidate matches, and it shows them on the map. The pins are all where the matches are. So those pins are Wikidata items. So I've scrolled down to Stockholm Central Station here, and there's a link that's show on map. So if I click that, then it zooms in, and you can see the station. There's the station on the OpenStreetMap node that represents the station, and the red pin you can see is the Wikidata item. There's some other blue pins; those are other Wikidata items that it's found a match for. And then highlighted in blue here, because I clicked show on map, this is the information from Wikidata. So and then below you've got the matching OpenStreetMap item. And you can see it says it's matched on an identifier, and you've got a name match. So I've got a tick box. If for any reason I thought this was a bad match, I could untick the box, and it wouldn't get saved. Just some more bits on this page. There's the item types. This is the excerpt from the English language Wikipedia. Like I picked English as the language, so that's why we're seeing it in English. And then it's got the station reference from Wikidata. And then I can see the tags if I want from OpenStreetMap. So here's the tags from that item on OpenStreetMap. And we can see it's matched railway station, and it's matching the reference. And we've got lots of name matches. Like it says that there's 18 name matches. Like it's pulling names from the labels in Wikidata, but also from the site links. And it looks in the like the first paragraph of the Wikipedia articles for names in aliases that are in bold. So lots of name matches. This is a good match. So we scroll down to the bottom, and we've got a link here that says Add Wikidata tags to OpenStreetMap. And we click it, and so that you get to the Save Edit screen. Double check the edits, like we've got the edits listed again, and then there's a change summary which we can modify if we want. And when we're happy, we hit Save, and it saves the tags to OpenStreetMap. And then it's quite small, but that's added the Wikidata tag to the item. So now the object in OpenStreetMap is tagged with the Wikidata identifier. And there's also a Wikipedia tag already in OpenStreetMap. Now, I'm not using the Wikipedia tags for finding matches because they're sometimes not correct. So, for example, there might be a good one is gravestones might have Wikipedia and then the name of the person whose gravestone it is, but there might be a Wikidata item that represents that gravestone. So that's a better thing to link to. And the same with statues. You know, there probably isn't a Wikipedia article about the gravestone or the statue, but there might be a Wikidata item to represent it. So, and then I have got an option that you can say, you can take and say, we'll add the Wikipedia tags if you want that. That's not on by default.
Can I ask a question?
Go for it.
In the previous slide, you matched the Wikidata item queue number against a single node. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wouldn't it make more sense to actually have a pathway or relation there? Just the outline of the full Stockholm Central Station, rather than a point.
Yes, you could. There is the station building is in there. I don't know the match. That's one approach. Yeah, but the matcher has managed to find the node, and I've linked against the node. Like it feels like the node is the better match than the station building. Is the answer.
I also always understand in OpenStreetMap the nodes are not guaranteed to be sustainable.
That's coming up.
Oh, that's okay. That's what I want to pay attention.
So just to carry on, the matching criteria is entity type, so that's railway station, the coordinates, so the two things are close to each other, and either name, street address, or identifier. So I get the street addresses from the wiki text of the articles and also from Wikidata. The station is an instance of railway station, and then if you scroll down within the Wikidata page, you get railway equals station. So there's a property within Wikidata for specifying Wikidata tags. So this is what I use to match them up and say this is the same type of thing. And then in terms of matching identifier, there's a lot of identifiers that I match on. So I've got a mapping of the Wikidata property to the tag in OpenStreetMap to look at. So this is the point that you were making about the identifiers are not stable. So sometimes when you edit the map, the identifiers change. Like for example, if a station was mapped just as a single point, and then someone changes it to be the building, then it ends up with a different identifier. So it's tricky to put the identifiers in the other direction. It would be very nice if we could say, let's have links from Wikidata to OpenStreetMap, but because the identifiers aren't stable, it'll get stale. And so there's been talk in the OpenStreetMap community of having stable identifiers for about 10 years. And the current thinking is that the best thing to use is Wikidata identifiers to be the stable identifiers for objects in OpenStreetMap. so then there's no need to add them to Wikidata. So it's interesting to see how this goes and whether this proposal does get adopted. Having said all that, the relation ID does tend to be quite stable. Like the relation is the kind of the highest level in the data hierarchy, and so you can put relation IDs in Wikidata. And I've got some software that does that, like as a batch process. It's not built into my matching tool. So I'll talk about some other features in the tool. Like it doesn't really work with very large areas. So if you search for Sweden, it will say Sweden is too large. It's got the size there. And so there's a browse interface where you can see smaller areas within another area. So here's the browse interface, and this shows you a list of the counties in Sweden. And you can change the language. So it's got a list of languages there. I've changed it to English. And then the page banner also on there is from Wikidata. That's those page banners are mostly for Wiki Voyage, but I reused them here just to add some room. And then here's the list of official languages for Sweden. So I grabbed that from the Sweden item. There's also a top level to the browser which show the continents, and then you can work your way down to countries and counties and so on. So that's using the Wikidata query service to find this information. So just going back to the example I had, I've got an option here to change the language. So this figures out the language in a different way. It analyzes how many labels there are in different languages. So in this city district, it finds that Swedish is the most common language, so it puts that first, followed by English, followed by French, and then I've got an edit button, so if I want to change the language order, I go to this page, and I can drag and drop, so I can say, I can drag English to the top, and by default it'll use English. If it doesn't have English, it'll drop back to Swedish. So people are using this tool. I've got 200 users so far, nearly 9,000 change sets uploaded to OpenStreetMap, and over 200,000 Wikidata tags added to OpenStreetMap. There's a graph. So this is showing how many Wikidata tags there are in OpenStreetMap. This is not just using my tool. This is other people who are adding Wikidata tags. We're getting close to 1.4 million Wikidata tags in OpenStreetMap. Go ahead.
You mentioned that we should check every match by hand before we submit it to OpenStreetMap. What are typical things we should look out for? What are the mistakes? What are the wrong matches predicted?
So sometimes the software gets confused, and I don't know. I've got an example later of a mall, and the cinema inside the mall matches the mall. So it's the wrong thing. The cinema isn't a shopping mall. So then you untick the box and say this is a mismatch. And I'm constantly improving the software to try and avoid those. But there's always going to be false positives. Is the kind of thing.
So hopefully you get a list of all the things where people uncheck the box.
There's an option to report a bad match. You can write a description. It could work better than it does. So if the licensing gets interesting because Wikidata is public domain, CC0, whereas OpenStreetMap is a different license, a license written for it, the Open Database license. And so in theory, copying data from OpenStreetMap to Wikidata would violate the Open Database license. That's fine because my system isn't doing that. But it gets even more interesting because they use different intellectual property jurisdictions. So OpenStreetMap asserts database rights, which is European law, and the ODBL is all about database rights, whereas Wikidata operates under US intellectual property rules and asserts that facts are not protected. So some in the OpenStreetMap community feel that a lot of the coordinates in Wikidata are derived from Google Maps. People look on Google Maps, find the coordinates, put them in Wikidata, and then it's a whole database full of coordinates taken from Google Maps. And the OpenStreetMap people are keen that those coordinates are not copied into OpenStreetMap because it pollutes the intellectual property rights of OpenStreetMap. And my software isn't doing that. Like, I'm using the coordinates to say these two things are nearby, but I'm just putting links in, so you know, it should be okay. And I've talked to OpenStreetMap people about this, and they're okay with it. So in terms of, I was talking about false positives and robot edits. When I first started this project about 4 years ago, I did try to do a fully automated system, and it didn't work very well because I did get false positives. They said, can you not do this please? So I switched to the tool where you get to see the edits and then you can check them and say yes, they're good. It's similar to in Wikimedia projects. There's strict rules about bot editing, and it's a laborious process to try and get through this, you know, list of import rules. So easier to have the assisted editing tool. And I've written here that you could just go through adding the links by hand, but it's much easier with the software finding the links for you. So the software is written in Python. I'm using WebSockets, so it's nice and interactive. I've got a list there of the various bit software that I'm using to build it. And then I use loads of APIs. So I'm using Wikimedia APIs, and I'm also using OpenStreetMap APIs to make the thing work. So I'm finding problems with Wikidata. When I'm working in the UK where I'm from, there's a lot of duplicate churches. There's churches that someone's written a Wikipedia article about, and then someone else has created a Wikidata item, kind of semi-automatic. And then when I go to match, the software says I found two things that both match this OpenStreetMap. So I have to go into Wikidata and merge the items. And it would be nice if that was built into the software, into my software, but I haven't done that yet. So you have to do that as a separate thing and then come back to the matcher. And then with the browse interface, I'm finding that the next level territorial administrative subdivisions is incomplete. Like, I was looking at Los Angeles, and it should have listed all of the districts within Los Angeles, and it was just half there, like someone had not put them all in. So you know, we've got work to do in terms of improving that data in Wikidata. I have problems with institutions, so things like a parliament and a parliament building. Like, you know, we often have coordinates on the institutions in Wikidata, and on the building that houses that institution. And maybe we should just have the coordinates on building and not on the institution, because it gets confusing. And then OpenStreetMap also can try and represent both things. So I try and handle this. I'm going to talk about some specific problems I have. Tunnels are interesting because OpenStreetMap represents them as two ways for each tunnel bore or direction of traffic, whereas Wikidata just has one item. And my software, I've written it to always want a one-to-one mapping, so this doesn't work for tunnels because there's two objects in OpenStreetMap, so I should change the software to handle that. Rivers get represented in different ways in OpenStreetMap, but they tend to be a collection of ways put together in a relation. I'm using a tool called OSM to PGSQL to load the data, and it doesn't support these type of relations, so my matching software can't find the rivers often. It can find quite simple rivers. If you've got short river, it'll work, but long rivers, it fails. And then tram stops, tram stops get represented in OpenStreetMap as two nodes on either side of the street where the tram stops, and a relation that groups those together, whereas in Wikidata we just have a single node that represents both directions of travel, or a single item rather in Wikidata. So that isn't working at the moment, but I've got some ideas for how to fix tram stops. And then I've got an open task in Fabricator, which is the Wikimedia Foundation is running their own OpenStreetMap infrastructure to serve the maps that appear on Wikidata. And I'd like to hook into that infrastructure, but I'm missing some indexes that I need to do fast querying. So I'd really like it if someone could sometime have a look at my my open task and add these indexes, and then I can switch to using that infrastructure, and it will speed things up a lot. I don't have to then maintain my own infrastructure quite so much. So yeah, that's my talk. Like I've got 5 minutes left, I think, for questions. If anyone has any questions.
Yeah. It's at first it's a fantastic software because it needs a lot of knowledge in Wikidata and OpenStreetMap to build a thing like this, and to connect all these things is a really great to have a complete open source data set of what a geography. And Kochi in Kerala, there is no link. Why?
Oh, so when you do the search, it finds some ways, relations of nodes, and it doesn't work for nodes. So like if you've got a city, there might be a node, but I need like a whole area. I need a polygon. So you have to find like the name of the administrative region that would be, would be the same thing as the city.
So then
there's a bit of text in the search results that explains. It just says it doesn't work with nodes.
Okay.
I can talk to you more about.
Okay, thank you.
Did I have a question at the back?
So briefly, can you kindly say something about European database law, which OpenStreetMap?
So database rights is quite a new thing, like maybe the last 15 years or something. And the idea is that it's a lot of effort to build a database. Like if I go around and collect a pile of facts, then I should be able to like say this is mine. I put lots of effort into building this database, and you're not allowed to come along and make a copy of it. Whereas the US intellectual property rules, they disagree, and they say it's all these facts are not copyrightable. Like it has to be an artistic work or something like, there has to be a certain level of complexity to be able to apply copyright, and they don't think that collecting facts into a database should give you any rights, any kind of intellectual property rights. That's the answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned polygons, and I have a particular interest in historical regions and the definition and the semantic understanding of those. I have no idea whether this at all could be managed solely in Wikidata, or how does OSM look at
OpenStreetMap has historical regions, like there's historical counties in the UK, and I think the boundary equals historical or historic is the tag, so you can put that information in OpenStreetMap. There's the same for Ireland. I know there's historical boundaries in there. I mean, most of OpenStreetMap is all about current data. They don't want so much kind of buildings that don't exist anymore, but I think it's different for historical regions. I think you can put that in OpenStreetMap. It gets tricky when a historical region has the same name as a current region, like when it's changed, and that confuses my software.
Poland?
Poland? I don't know.
In 1865, the British Prime Minister complained that there were 26 British colonies in North America, and half of them were rebelling. And so would you have the historical regions of all 26?
I don't think so. There is a separate project like OpenHistoryMap, I think, and I think that would be kind of a better place for that information.
Hi, thank you for the presentation and for the tool. It looks fantastic. But I think the tool assumes that both objects exist on OpenStreetMap and Wikidata.
Yes.
But if one of them, if we have one object on OpenStreetMap but not on Wikidata, is it possible to generate it automatically from?
Because of the like the different licenses, you can't take data from OpenStreetMap and use it to create a Wikidata item. Like in reality, no one is going to come and tell you off, but I'm probably not going to write software to do that.
Yeah, you can take a dump from the OSM and generate a list of the area, then pull it to the bot to Wikidata, then match back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yeah, go.
I'm a big fan of your tool. Could you say something about how the resulting data can be taken use of as easily as possible when they are not in the data or where?
How the data can be accessed?
Yeah.
Yes, somebody should build an API with the mapping between OpenStreetMap and Wikidata. Like I would probably do this eventually. One of the APIs that I use is called Overpass, and you can say to Overpass, give me all the nodes that have a Wikidata tag. That used to work. There's now too many of them that it times out, I think. So you'd have to kind of either do a different approach, I think. Like somebody should download the dump of all items and then pull out the ones that have a Wikidata tag, and then watch the changes. Like there's a change feed you can see and update that. So there's an approach to doing that, but it's not there yet. That would be a useful thing to have. Any other questions? I mean, I can give you a demo. So this is the software running. I've got a canned one here. So this is a county in South Carolina, and the software is showing me the pins. I've got 5 candidates. It's found a school that matches. So if I click on Show on Map, there's the school. And here's a building that's matched. Here's an example of where it hasn't worked. So I've got a mall with a cross next to it, and it says OSM candidate matches multiple Wikidata items, and then here's a cinema that is within the mall. And so it's matched the same OpenStreetMap thing to 2 different Wikidata items. So it won't let me upload those. And then there's no interface at the moment to pick which one is the right one. I have to write that. And then it's matched in an airfield. So I say, yep, these look good. Add to Wikidata tags. It's showing me the 3 matches that it can add. And then I hit save. And then it's uploaded them. So I can do view your change set. That's the change set on OpenStreetMap. And you can see it's added the information.
Less than a minute.
I think that's it. I think I'm out of time.
Okay.